already seen this matchup, and every time it seems like, I mean, first things first comes down to who does go first, and it looks like Depledged will be going
No,
first. Oh no,
second.
HydroJon will be
HydroJon.
going
Yep.
first. Yes. So it is going to be Spike starting, and we already talked about this, like how Spike's being able to go first against Murakumo lets them just kind of like pre-stabilize in a way, like in a way they're just setting up the force numbers, being able to just protect themselves from any big attacks that might come through, and like delaying the board wipe as well. I think it's just looking pretty good for HydroJon here for starters. But I mean, Deep Pledge, you said, is a well-known player and does have plenty of achievements, so I'm sure he can find ways. I mean, I'm sure he's practiced this deck plenty of times going second, because like when you're
Yep.
playing a deck that is best going first, the best thing to do is to practice it going second to make
That's
sure you
right.
could win the other
Exactly.
50% of your matchups.
Yeah, not to brag, but he took second place at a really cool local in Fullerton yesterday.
Ooh.
Oh
What
yeah,
local
kind of
is
a big
that?
deal. Well, 35 entrants, so he's kind of a big deal around here, you guys. But yeah, so to tag on to that, going second is of course something you need to do. And like I mentioned a little bit earlier, I think Murakumo and Shadows are probably the best decks at going second in the current meta. One, because Murakumo can stabilize very easily, like I said, toolboxiness, and once you get onto Hyuga, you can search out any piece in your deck, just because grade 3s will 99% of the chance be on the board. And of course, Mordred, we don't talk about that right now, but it's good going second because Mordred is active on your first grade 3 ride. So kind of for the same reason, your grade 3 being as active as possible on your first grade 3 ride is really good. And for Hyuga players, that could honestly mean pushing your opponent to 5 or 4 damage on your first grade 3 ride and being able to delete their board if you get a lucky soul charge early. So, Solemn, what are you thinking so far? Not a lot has happened. We're going back into Spike Brothers' turn. What's going
Yeah,
on
not
here?
much has happened indeed. However, it's interesting to note that he is able to make that column of 18k right there, well, 28 actually. And so that will make so even defensives don't really matter. Now, one thing you mentioned is how Murakumo can play going second, and that's true because, as you said, their toolbox, they can Nyundo to make some hand. However, their board wipe is delayed, as me and Chris have talked about quite a bit already. And I think that's a pretty major thing, especially against a Spike Brother deck, because they can put stuff back already, and now it's also being delayed even more. So I definitely think that really matters. Now, in this specific matchup, Murray is going second, actually. Yeah,
Yep.
it's actually going second.
Yeah.
And we also see the Anarch going to damage already. Now, I don't know if HydroJon is playing more. No, sorry, his opponent is playing more, but if they aren't, that's going to be a really big deal for the rest of the game, because that means their power-up will be reliant on the Hiyaki Vogue.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I think looking at this like early setup from HydroJon as well, like he's got the pressure that he just had with the Garrigan, and being able to draw himself extra cards. Like he has a full board with big numbers. I mean, not full board, but a good board presence and a 5-card hand here already. And then I mean, next turn these Brackies should be able to still power up once again with the recycle. And I mean, overall, it's just looking pretty good for HydroJon. But as you said, I mean, Murakumo doesn't really struggle going second, and I think he's going to be able to still pull through in this matchup pretty well. But I mean, we did just see this exact same matchup of Murakumo versus Spikes. And what was it that allowed the Murakumo player to win? It wasn't particular skills or particular attack patterns, but it was, I
Just
mean,
being
you
really
could
good at the
argue.
game.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
But yeah, I mean, it's like the 4 heals did help him quite a lot. So I guess you could even potentially say that Spikes in matches like this do have a pretty good matchup and able to pull through in that sense. So I think honestly, anyone really has a chance here. So I think it's we'll just see how it rolls out. But honestly, I like the matchup. I think Spikes are just really strong right now, and I think it's quite surprising. Like I don't think either me or you, Maxime, expected to see Spikes come up over and over again every round and keep progressing through the tournament and
Yeah.
looking to secure a top 16 like without any problem.
Yeah, and so I think one cool thing to know here is whatever player wins this match is almost guaranteed, I believe, fully guaranteed a top 16 spot. So this is actually a pretty pivotal game here, considering that they're all 3-0. So moving into this, we're trying to close out this final main phase here. So decent numbers going to be on the board, going to be expecting a lot of guard. And one thing to note as well is the Depledged on the left here is already sitting at 3 damage, so this could possibly be a pretty big push, considering that, he's going to have, all right. So riding into Bad End Dragger, not optimal. That's the guy that bottom next. Yeah, so he does get to add a crit.
Yeah, so that's instantly going like, if you don't guard this, you may just die this turn. So
yeah.
That does hurt in a way. Still, it's not a ride you really want to be on.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing that I kind of want to point out here, because I don't know if a lot of people kind of want to notice, Spike Brothers, I think, has the most agency with Force 1 and Force 2. And so the fact that he rode Bad End Dragger, he really wanted to commit to that Force 1 just because he already has a little bit of crit pressure. He wants to make sure the numbers are a little bit bigger since he can't really build the biggest board because he doesn't have restanders, he doesn't have the grade 3 that he wants. So going Force 1 and shoving it under Vanguard is really going to help him put the pressure onto someone who's at 9k base, and a crit, drive check and a crit on a no guard would win the game right now. So pretty smart play going Force 1, and most of the time they do go Force 1, but small little things like that is what you got to look out for at these higher, XO top table kind of matches.
Another note is that since he was at 3 already, going Force 2 is pretty meh, since it means you will scale really badly into the late game, and you know that Force 1 will just, get bigger and bigger, especially if you then ride the Bull Spike and get to play around with it, whereas Force 2 really does nothing once they're at higher damage. So I do feel like the Force 1 is going to be the correct play the large majority of the time, especially here.
I mean, but also coming back to that, I feel like he was probably hoping to go into the Bull Spike, and seeing that being the 1 damage that he took last turn probably did shut that down. But if he did go for Force 2 this turn, his opponent being on 6 cards in hand and not exactly... I mean, he does have the Shirogeki that we saw, but like him being on 6 cards in hand could potentially lead to him being able to push, and then if he had that bad end in hand, he could have called that, had the 3 crit attack, just like we saw in round 1, and be able to really pressure for lethal really early and just force out a lot of resources that way. I agree that he wouldn't be able to scale as much as with Force 1, but then he'd be already basically threatening game on this turn here if he had the Bull Spike. But as he doesn't, I think Force 1 is definitely the correct play. But just kind of coming back to it in retrospective, I think it's it's definitely an interesting choice, but I think with Bull Spike it could have actually been better to go for Force 2 if he had drawn it. But yeah, so we're gonna see here. I mean, honestly, the other thing for Spikes is I think a lot of the players here, not necessarily just the Murakumo players, but just most players, probably didn't expect this deck to keep coming up. And there's only 5 of them. But if they keep all progressing to top cut, and they all, land themselves in top 16, I think a lot of players just haven't tested against the deck. Like, I think those of you that watch, some of our famous content creators that make, Spike's content, like Living Proof, I think that, that you at least know what the deck does, and you're prepared for it. But I think a lot of people just didn't see this deck coming. They didn't see this deck being so good and being able to take games. And so I think to some extent it might be under preparation to some extent, because, I mean, somebody in chat pointed out that you could have used the Fushimi there to give the back row attack skill to Rainy Madam and take out the punter. But then I think just potentially from not knowing that punter is an important card, or like knowing that punter can actually kind of circumvent Hyuga's board wipe, you just don't make that like logical click. And so I think it's just
a matchup thing though. Like, you would want to attack that grade 1 in the back row, no matter if it's good or bad, because you know that a defensive trigger could like end that attack anyway. So I don't think that's a matchup thing, but more so just an oversight from playing Murai itself rather than playing against Spike. I don't really know if there's something you can do play style wise to really counter Spike other than knowing when to guard.
Right.
Yeah.
Ooh, that draw
Declan,
trigger
how
double.
are you seeing this game?
That is some really big
seeing
deal.
this game taking some advantage now. So I think one good thing to really point out here is, regardless of how much damage he pushes out this turn, he's for sure getting 1 damage there. I don't think... Did he put crit on rearguard too? Did he drive check a crit? I don't think so. No,
I think it was double draw.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I was just reading chat and it says crit, but I guess that was something else. So yeah, so push him to 4 damage. The fact that he double draw triggered puts so many cards in hand, and it also, don't forget that we there was a lot of time where, he rewrote, he miswrote, right? So double draw, and all the times he drew that turn, he probably fished out the piece that he actually needed. And the better part about it is that the Mura player has no knowledge of what's in his hand now because there's so many draw triggers. Obviously, he has 2 draws in hand, but typically during drive checks, you know 2 cards in their hand and that's it. So now you know 2 cards in the hand, but they added 2 more that you don't know. So there's a lack of knowledge on behalf of Depledged's part. And on top of that, he now has a higher chance of hopefully finding those pieces. So when he goes into his next turn having 9 or 10 cards in hand, 9 cards in hand, and the Hyuga skill is not really that scary. Because if he has another Brecci on field, he can search Brecci out. If he has another Wonder Board, he can search, So he has tools to get everything on the board back. And honestly, putting them into the deck might even, in the long run, help him make sure he can reuse that Brecci skill, bump the damage up a little bit higher if he ends up going to a Seafried ride. So there's a lot of things that happen from this turn where he's now kind of immune, like you said, to this Hyugi, really this scary Hyuga board wipe. But actually, now that I think about it, he doesn't even have a grade 3 in Soul, so he can't even board wipe in the first place.
Yeah.
So, this 4 cards in hand, 2 Rainy Madams on the field, there's not a lot that he has to work with. And if he doesn't really push and, do much this turn, or at least try maybe clear some of the board out, I don't think there's much that he can do. I think Hydro just has such a huge advantage. 9 cards in hand. He can refresh field. He can push with the cards he needs. Not a lot of shield value on the Depledged's part. I think this is fairly heavily in Hydro's favor.
Yes. Now, one thing he could do is the famous Winley, where he just starts healing like crazy.
The famous
to turn the game around. Because right now it's pretty obvious that Spike is just in such a great position. It's very hard to come back from that.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's somehow able to just rip 2 heals, the whole game could change.
Yeah, honestly, double healing right now would pretty much guarantee that he, at 2 damage, the opponents can be at 3 or 4. So even if he doesn't have a lot of cards in hand, he already committed a Force 1, and there's only 1 card that really gives crit that's on. It's only Vanguard, right? Are there any rear guards that give themselves crit? In Spikes?
Only Dragger himself, right?
Yeah, but I think it's only on.
Only Dragger.
That's only on Oh no, it's Vanguard Rearguard. So if he pulls another Dragger, then the only crit pressure he'll have is with Vanguard skill or with Dragger. So if he does, in this case, go down to 2 damage, he's in actually a fairly good situation. But yeah, double draw on drive check, just like Gary said in the chat here, really shifted momentum in his favor.
Yeah, and let's keep in mind that he could have drawn into another bad end, and this bad end on Vanguard is going to be coming out as soon as he rides on top of it. So that's kind of the nice thing of okay, it is a misride, and he could have seen something else, but it's just going to come out and slap. It's ready
it would also wipe field.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So, although, having said that, what are you really wiping here? Because
only
every
Madam,
column,
basically.
the Madam can go into Soul too. So he can actually
if there's a Shira. He could also go to Soul for nothing, I guess. But
so 2 damage coming out here, pushing up to 4. Madam going to be swinging for 18 here. 2 damage, no triggers. That is going to work out in favor of Depledged here.
Yeah, so that is pretty good. Pushing him to 4 does help him close out the game next turn, but he knows he's not going to be able to end the game here, and he knows that the Brecci is a pretty vital card for HydroJon strategy. So I think here targeting this Brecci is definitely efficient, but what I'm not sure about is, does he even have any Breccis left in deck? Let's check his Soul. He has 2 in Soul, 1 on board, none in drop. Did he damage check any? No, he did not. So I think he still has 1 left, which would be this Brecci recycling itself to fetch that last one to deck fin some more and get the power up. But yeah, he does guard it, so that does show us. But it's a 25k guard, which is definitely not the best, especially dropping that Spike Bouncer. Maybe he has another one in hand.
Right.
But yeah, I guess it's not even that bad, because if he can keep the Brecci and then call down the bad end, he already has great attacker set up.
Yeah.
He doesn't technically care about the Spike Bouncer. But yeah, so here we can see that he's basically just converting all his Nudos into Soul and draw. He's not going to be putting away the Radiant Madam, though, so that could get retired. I think you said that he could Soul in for nothing, but it's better to Soul it in than to lose it, because that Soul is so precious in Murakumo.
Yes.
Yeah,
I really agree.
Yeah, so I guess we'll see how he progresses, but I guess he's going to get himself a free retire regardless. So, as long as he has a grade 3 in hand, that's the one thing we
I was about to say, this, it's really going to come down to this phase right now. It's
now,
there. Wow,
one interesting thing, though, You
Another
said
bad
losing
hint.
Spike Bouncer, but that may not hurt as much because you really want to see B for stuff like Bad End.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
And I mean, he's going to be able to use 2 this turn apparently because he rewrote
Yeah.
into it, and I think that's not even a bad play because he's able to recycle stuff. And he called down the force marker.
Yo,
But-
swing, boys.
Yeah. But he's going to get to take this Bad End out of Soul, retire that Rainy Madam, swing for big numbers, lots of crit pressure. He needs to check 1 crit to put on the Bracky, and then he's basically got, lethal set up on every side of the board. So that's really strong.
Yeah, that was super smart play. Yeah, he had 5 units in just in case for chat there. So he is going to be swinging. He does have 2 counter blasts, so keep that in mind. These are going to be 2 different columns swinging for 2 damage each. So he has to guard both of those Bad End Draggers. And this could potentially be fairly scary. So he's most likely going to have to swing for that Brecky Wonder Boy column and then just swing Bad End Dragger twice because you hit the bottom deck for each skill. Oh, what's he doing now?
Yep, so...
Oh, it's still main phase. I thought he jumped to combat phase. I was like, wow, he's not going to call anything else? Okay, so it's Wonder Boy for another Wonder Boy. That was super smart. Moving him over to that Bad End Dragger column just to make 31 opposed to the 23. So smart. Squid there. So he's using the Wonder Boy skill one more time when placed. We should have one more unit going to be going behind that Brecky.
That Wonder Boy will get an extra 5k as well after he recycles this trigger.
Exactly.
So it's going to be a 36. So definitely pretty threatening, especially knowing that it has the crit. And Bad End does give himself another extra 5, so it's a 41. That's pretty scary. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, 41 with crit. He has to guard it. And then you still have the Vanguard swing, which 23 really means you should be guarding for close to 43. So, everything's basically a 25k guard, 35k guard if he wants to lose those 2. Because both those Bad End Draggers are going to have crits on them. So, super, super scary. Bracky skill coming in. 20k swinging. So what's the play here?
One interesting thing to note, though, is that he has to call rear guards to kill off the Bad End.
Yeah, so I think what he's going to
back.
do is he's going to put something behind the Bracky and swing that column first and then just throw them into
Would he
Soul.
want to do that, though? Because that gives the opportunity to take a damage that then could be a defensive to guard the other 2.
Right. And so,
I'm not
that's
so sure
that's
about
the line
that.
of play.
And if he has to put 2 cards that he murders of Bad End, then he may just die next turn
Right.
off a Hyuga rewrite. So
Yeah,
it
it's how much goes to commit.
it can still go either way.
I think the play here would just to be to swing with just Vanguard and see what happens. Because if it gets a crit, it doesn't matter. It's because it is on declaration of attack. So swinging with crit on Vanguard might be good. So you can bottom deck maybe drop I don't know. And I guess that's the play here. So that's probably why he's still thinking. I think dropping more cards from my hand just to kill for Bad End might not be the play because, like you said, losing shield value.
But
is
he's
probably
doing
gonna hurt.
it.
Oh, he's doing both of them. He's hard committing. So he's going to swing most likely Vanguard. Rear guard first.
At
Activate
Hyaki?
that skill.
Oh.
No, yeah.
Oh, that's different. I thought he would kill the Hyaki, but I suppose hitting the crit on the Braki would still be very scary.
Yeah, he wants to try and pressure for that, which I think is definitely valuable. But, I mean, he has to deal with this 41 first, and I think it's quite interesting, I guess. But is he going to swing with a Bad End and then bot deck the draw that he just called? Or is he going to bot deck the Wonder Boy?
Whoa.
All right.
He's double
Shirayuki.
Shirayuki. Oh.
All right.
Yikes. So
All
that
right.
puts that to 21 already.
Yeah, so his Vanguard's going down to 3k. Rear guard's going down to 21. And that'll be a 5k swinger. So now, yeah, that changes everything. I think that was definitely the right play considering how he was sequencing his attacks. Just because now everything, he doesn't have to worry about that rear guard column at all unless he gets a trigger. And everything is a 1-card guard. And Vanguard is already a 1 to pass. So a 5k shield value is going to be a 2 to pass from Vanguard. And he only needs 10k shield value for this attack. So he did drop 3 cards for this 1 attack. But he should have enough value unless he drive checks double crit or something and puts all power rear guard. I think he's okay. And this is 3k, not 13. He just hasn't reduced the power yet.
Yep. Yeah, so that's going to be a 3k. I mean, it can go up to 8k when you use the Bad End, so, I mean, it's something.
Big
But-
difference.
That actually does make a
Yeah.
difference because that becomes that changes from a 5K to a 10K shield value for a 2-to-pass. So that actually does make quite the difference.
And he only has 3 cards in hand.
Exactly. So if he has like grade 2, and then like a 10K or something, he now has to drop the 10K or both grade 2s, something like that. Or if he has like grade 2, grade 3 or something, then now he
Yeah,
literally
and he's dying next turn anyway, so you
Yeah.
might as well take the risk and bottom the Wonder Boy.
Yeah, exactly.
That is true. Oh man.
Well, actually,
This swung so fast.
is he dying next turn though? 3
Yes,
cards
he's
in
at
hand.
4. He has 3 cards
Well,
in hand.
he's gonna have 5
have
cards in
5.
hand. So he'll have 5 cards in hand. It's
Yes,
gonna come
that
down to
is true.
this. So if he hits a draw trigger again, I think he only has like 1 left in deck, or if that. If he hits a heal, that might be nuts because healing is active. That's a no guard.
Oh,
so
he's no guarding.
that means he has like grade 3
Ooh.
something. If he gets a crit right now,
Let's see if he changes. He's reminding him that he has crit. He's like, I know. Oh no.
Oh, that is
Oh,
Might
really
another
no.
crit comes down. He gives power to Vanguard. Just not sure
Yeah.
why, but that still goes through. There's a draw.
Watch him
Can't
heal,
be a
double
double
heal.
heal.
No.
Oh.
Man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
yet.
I think his hand was full
Oh.
grade 3. Yeah, I knew it. His hand was full grade 3 and a grade 2. That's exactly what I said. I said if he pups that
Oh,
5K,
man.
it's no longer a 5K guard. So literally bumping 5K made it so he had to do that. No matter what, though, he did not have enough shield value to guard the rear guard column anyway. So no matter what, he was taking 2 damage. Because if he drove checked the
Yes.
crit, he would have put crit power on rear guard if it was a 2-to-pass, even if he didn't want to commit. And he still wouldn't have had the shield value to guard that. So the only way that would have come down to it is if he committed to the 2-to-pass and missed it and then couldn't swing Bracky. But yeah, getting stuck with – that man had 3 Shiryukis in his hand at the end of that game. So, wow.
Yeah, I mean, we
Alright.
saw him farm them. We saw him find them off the Jackox girls and everything. So, I mean, it was coming at some point. He was farming them up for this, but to see no other defensive cards in hand and just kind of, I mean, not even be able to. I mean, he could have won to pass it
Yeah.
technically,
Mhm.
but I mean, he was already at 1 to pass actually. So
Yeah.
like he couldn't even get up to a 2 to pass, and that's just really, really unfortunate. But I think honestly, Depledged did try everything he could in that game, and I think, I mean, having 1 more soul would have made a difference. And,
Yeah.
like we could come back to that Rainy Madam, but then actually, I realized if he had used that Rainy Madam, he wouldn't have had enough
Nudo,
units on board for the Nudo. Yeah,